Islamic articles and its apologetics often makes the claim that the Arab woman had no status before Islam other than being sex objects, and how it liberated women. Here are a few examples of such articles. One is from Islam.org and the other one from Voice of Islam. This video will look into the veracity of these claims. What the Muslim apologists conveniently omit is when one actually looks at Islamic references, Allah and Muhammad said some damning things about women, such as how she is to be ready at all times to sexually gratify her husband, otherwise she is cursed, as it says in Sahih Muslim 1436. Muhammad went on to say in Sahih Bukhari 304 that most women will be in hellfire due to not being grateful to their husbands, and insults them by saying they are deficient in their religion and intelligence. According to the Quran, a husband is allowed to beat his wife. Her share of inheritance is less than her male counterpart, and a man's witness testimony is worth more than a woman's due to her intelligence being low, as confirmed by the hadith in Sahih Bukhari. In Sahih Muslim 1403, Muhammad describes women as devils only because he was aroused by a woman, then sexually satisfies himself by having intercourse with his wife Zainab. This kind of language and rhetoric has seen women abused if they are not covered head to toe. Muhammad falsely projects his guilt on the woman due to not being able to control his own lusts and desires. The woman is the one who is incorrectly being blamed and disadvantaged. This is hardly liberating language. The consequence of these teachings are all too evident, especially in countries where the Islamic law is implemented. Cambridge-educated Professor of Divinity at Harvard, Dr. Leila Ahmed, explains the notion that Islam emancipated women is propaganda and politically motivated in order to elevate Islam. In her book, she says, and I quote, "Islamic civilization developed a construct of history that labeled the pre-Islamic period the age of ignorance and projected Islam as the sole source of all that was civilized, and used that construct so effectively in its rewriting of history that the peoples of the Middle East lost all knowledge of the past civilizations of the region. Obviously, that construct was ideologically serviceable, successfully concealing, among other things, the fact in some cultures of the Middle East women had been considerably better off before the rise of Islam than afterward." In this article, written by an objective Muslim, reiterates that often Islamic articles and their scholars generally make the false claim that Islam bettered the lives of Arab women compared to pre-Islamic Arab women, but these narratives do not accurately cover the plight of women in Arabia before Islam. After quoting Leila Ahmed from the previously cited source, it then goes on to say the rhetoric is politically motivated, maneuvered to make the religion of Islam the liberator of women. Next, some examples will be given in regards to some Arab women before Islam. It will be shown how some of these women were prominent and very powerful, in fact more powerful than any Arab woman ever was after Islam. For example, founded back many millennia and attaining prominence in the 3rd century BC, the kingdom of Tadmor, or Palmyra as it is known today in modern Assyria, was affluent as it controlled the vital trade route between Mesopotamia and the Mediterranean. This kingdom excelled in international trade, but eventually came under the control of the expanding Roman imperialism due to its strategic location. In 263 AD, King Odenatus, who was of Arab descent, assumed the title of King of Kings. He held a position within the Roman Empire as an ally when he assisted the Romans in their war against Persia. After his death in 267 AD, unlike her husband, however, the king's widow, Queen Zenobia, was not content just to remain a Roman client. In 269, she seized Egypt and declared herself its queen. She then conquered much of Asia Minor and declared her independence from Rome. In so doing, she proclaimed her son emperor and assumed the title of empress for herself, thus declaring Palmyra's secession from Rome. This angered the Romans and it led to the destruction of the kingdom of Tadmor and the capturing of Queen Zainab. The point is, by conquering Egypt and capturing Roman provinces, she nearly transformed her realm into an empire equal to Rome. She died in 274 with many tales recorded about her actual fate. Her rise and fall have inspired historians, artists and novelists. Even till today, this warrior queen is a patriotic symbol in Syria. Her image can still be found on their currency. Even during Muhammad's time, there were very powerful women. One such example is Hind bin Utbah. She was the wife of Abu Sufyan, a powerful man of Mecca. She was the mother of Muawiyah I, the founder of the Umayyad dynasty. Both Abu Sufyan and Hind originally opposed Muhammad before their conversion to Islam in 630. To avenge her family's death at the Battle of Badr at the hands of the Muslims, she herself participated in the Battle of Uhud. She stood in the middle of her army and then urged them to fight and not to escape. This time round, the battle was a victory for her and her army against Muhammad and the Muslims. Hind ordered her slave called Wahshi to kill Muhammad's uncle Hamza for the death of her father, brother and uncle, who were all killed by Muhammad and the Muslims a year earlier. Though initially vilified, later she is praised in Islamic sources, especially for her bravery and military role at the Battle of Yarmouk in 636 against the Romans. In that, just like at Uhud, every time some men ran away, she and the women turned them back and fought. She even reprimands her husband, the powerful Abu Sufyan, and other men for trying to flee the battle, and recites the same poetry she had recited when she fought against the Muslims at the Battle of Uhud many years earlier. Another example of a female who had influence amongst early Arabs was Sajah bint al-Haris ibn Suwaid. She was from the tribe of Banu Taghlib. Just as her contemporary Muhammad claimed to be a prophet, she too also claimed prophethood in 7th century Arabia, and was the only Arab female claiming to be a prophetess during the wars of apostasy. Before claiming to be a prophetess, Sajah had a reputation as a soothsayer. Such was her influence and respect, some important people joined her mission, with over 4,000 people gathering with her to face the Muslims in battle. As her actions were in direct contravention to Muhammad and the Muslims, at the Battle of Yamama in 632, after her husband Musaylima, who also claimed prophethood, was killed and beheaded by the Muslims, she was forced to recant and accept Islam in order to save her life. More information about her can be found in these sources and more. Kulfa was an elderly Arab woman contemporaneous to Muhammad. She belonged to a pagan tribe named Banu Fazara. She was also chief of her clan and a very powerful woman. Such was her power and sphere of influence. The Arabs used to say about her, quote, "Had you been more powerful than Qurfa, you could have done no more." End quote. She was brutally killed when Muhammad and his followers raided and overpowered them. The attack took place almost 6 years after Muhammad's migration to Medina in 622 AD. Early traditional sources recount how Muhammad's companions tied Qirfa to a pair of camels, which, after being made to run in opposite directions, teared her body in half. They later took her daughter to be given to one of Muhammad's companions. Here are some references and sources from traditional Muslim sources about the incident. Muhammad despised women being leaders. His actions against powerful women explains his disdain when he stated, "Never will succeed such a nation as makes a woman their ruler." He said this in reference to when Persia had selected a woman as their leader. This would have made her the most powerful woman in the world at the time. Islamic websites attested by contemporary and classical scholars agree with Muhammad's sentiments and actions. His statements have been used ever since to deprive women of holding leadership positions. Khadija, Muhammad's first wife, 15 years his senior, she was the most powerful of the two during her life. She was the rich and influential one who financed his mission. Prior to Muhammad's claim to be a prophet, he was comparably insignificant. She was wealthy, powerful, and his employer. He was a poor orphan, and she was the one who went on to support and fund his prophethood when he made these claims 15 years into their marriage at the age of 40. She was 55 at the time. So even from within Islamic apologetics, how it can be claimed women had no rights before Islam when they have people such as Khadija amongst their midst is astonishing. Such was her level of influence and importance as a historical figure. She was included in the iconic book and the bestseller of its era, the Iconum Insignium, compiled during the Renaissance period. A book with portraits of renowned individuals from different eras and places, from Abraham as well as other Old Testament prophets to Jesus, from monarchs and Caesars to mythical figures and philosophers. Although Muhammad is not included in the book, Khadija has been honored to have been given a portrait medallion within the book, making her the only Muslim and female to have been given this honor. So in conclusion, women held prominent roles of leadership before Islam. Muhammad himself has had a great deal to thank his first wife Khadija, as he existed on the coattails of her wealth and status whilst she was still alive. She was the one who gave him the eventual springboard for his later claim to prophethood. After his claim to so-called prophethood and soon after the death of Khadija, Muhammad denigrated women, calling them less intelligent and deficient in their religion, that the majority of women will be in hellfire for displeasing their husbands, and are cursed if they do not attend to their husbands' sexual needs, that they cannot be leaders, that they come in the shape of a devil, and so on. The Quran promotes violence against women. It says they are to inherit less than their male counterparts, that their witness testimony is half of a man's due to the deficiency in her intelligence. All these misogynistic and chauvinistic teachings have had a damaging consequence that still has a lasting effect all over the world where Islamic law is implemented. In this video, it was shown how, before Islam, women were allowed to be leaders. They were allowed to be successful businesswomen. They were allowed to become queens and empresses. They were allowed to become a warrior or a prophetess. They were respected and had huge power and influence over huge swathes of people, men and women. They took part in active life however they saw fit, without a man telling them what was best for them. Islam brought with it a decline in their status when Muhammad introduced misogynistic teachings. He had killed some in very humiliating ways and mocked women for being leaders. As some of the pre-Islamic Arab women cited in this video were more powerful and influential than any woman after Islam, it can be argued that women were already liberated, and it is Islam that has held them back ever since.